Alright, good evening, folks, and welcome back to Wilderness Wargaming. Tonight we're going to be talking real briefly about the 10th edition Terminator datasheet that has come out from Games Workshop. So I'm going to go over it and take a look at it, see how the new datasheet format holds up with a little bit more complicated unit. So let's dive right into it. Okay, one thing I want to note right off the top is that the datasheet, and I noticed this now about the Termagents, now that I'm thinking about it, does not show unit size as yet. I imagine it'll be put on there eventually. And it does not show unit war gear options. It shows war gear options, but it does not show war gear option quantities or how they're distributed between the sergeant and all that. Now, I don't think it's going to change from what it currently is. We're talking about a regular Terminator squad, not the assault version. So no Thunderhammers and Storm Shields, no Lightning Claws. This is the Power Fist and range weapons, guys. And I imagine it's still going to be 5 to 10, heavy weapon, sergeant with the power weapon, the power sword, and then power fist or chain fist on everybody else. Those are the weapon options that are on the data sheet. So you're not going to be able to mix and match assault with regular, like you could way back in 2E. But we don't know for sure that it's going to remain the same in terms of quantity. Now, getting into the data sheet here, a lot of it hasn't changed very much. It's still a 5-inch move. Toughness has gone up to 5. Save is still 2 plus, 3 wounds. That's no change. Leadership is now 6 up, but leadership is now going to be roll high rather than roll low. OC 1. Now I learned that OC means objective control. They're 1 versus the Terminators 2. So I imagine you're going to multiply OC by the number of units in the model. Whoever has the higher score has control. That seems the simplest way to do it. So it could be wrong, but I doubt it. Getting down to the weapons, we got the assault cannon with something called devastating wounds, 24-inch range, 6 attacks, 3 up ballistic skill strength, 6 no AP now, that's dropped. Cyclone missile launcher has frag and crack options, both 36-inch range. They haven't changed all that much, although again, armor penetration seems to have dropped. And we've got strength on the crack version up to 9. The heavy flamer ignores cover, which is pretty cool, and torrent, which I believe means the auto hit weapon, which lines up with the fact that it has a ballistic skill of not applicable. So I don't know how else you would determine hit if it's not auto hitting. And other than that, it has not changed very much. The Stormbolter similarly has remained pretty much the same. It's rapid fire too. I understand that rapid fire may be changing a little bit. Maybe slightly nerfed, but I'm not sure. I haven't had a chance to investigate that yet. Melee, you've got Chain Fist and a Power Fist, which now both have the same profile. They've lost a little bit of AP. The Chain Fist has got something called Anti-Vehicle 3 up. And then the 3 up leads me to believe that it is probably like a poison weapon, only it works against vehicles. So like the Drakari poison weapons that wound infantry on a 4 up no matter what. I am pretty sure this will wound vehicles on a 3 up no matter what. Now, interestingly, the Chain Fist is still weapon skill 4, which would account for the current -1 to hit modifier. The Power Fist is now weapon skill 3 up, and that's exciting just for the Terminators themselves. What will be even more exciting if that means Power Fists for Marines in general are now shorn of their -1 to hit modifier, which I never quite got why Power Fists had that, since they already were basically 5 points more than all the other war gear options. Thunderhammers, it made a little more sense, but for Power Fists, I was never 100% on that. And the power weapon, so I guess it doesn't have to be a sword anymore. Could be an axe, could be a maul, unless they have some plans to turn the maul into a two-hander like it is in Dark Tide or in Inquisitor Martyr, which I plan to have a video on soon. You can now customize your squad leader with an axe if you want to, or a maul, or maybe even a staff, spear, who knows, it's just a power weapon. That's pretty cool. I would wonder if it's possible to give more than just the squad leader, the sergeant, the power weapon. That would also be pretty cool, but I wouldn't count on that. Keywords, going down here to the bottom. Infantry, Imperium, Terminator, Terminator Squad. So fewer keywords. No sign of core, which is very interesting, so I wonder if that's going away. I'm not sure if that's a good idea, because it's kind of an on-off switch that Games Workshop can use to adjust weapons. Gives them a little more fine control over game balance if they need it. But it is reducing the number of keywords and the amount of complexity, which is good. And no Primaris. And based on what they've already said about these models, that they can remember that the Terminators could be either Firstborn or Primaris, tends to lead me to believe that just aren't going to really distinguish between them at all anymore. don't know if it's only going to be for Terminators or if it's going to be for everybody. But I guess we'll find out. I'm kind of tending to believe that it's going to be for almost all Marines. They also have faction keyword Adeptus Astartes, so I guess that's their faction from now. There's no sub-faction included. There's no chapter in brackets to substitute in or out. You don't need to do any of that. So that could be cool. If you have Marines in more than one chapter, you could combine them into a single army and play perhaps under certain rule sets, which might be great for co-op games. What's interesting is that Imperium is not listed as a faction keyword. Now, I don't know quite what purpose that's going to serve. Imperium isn't really a faction. It's kind of more of a mega faction. But it is interesting that it's not listed any in the factions section. That is kind of interesting to me. Moving on to their abilities, I'm going to start at the bottom. Invulnerable save is now 4 up. Now, that's goes to the general increase in survivability that I think is going to happen across the game. I hear toughness values are going to rise and may go as high as 12 in some cases. I see reductions in armor penetration. I do see an increase in strength in the crack missile launcher, but already these guys are tougher with the increased toughness and better invul. What it does make me wonder about is what's going to happen with the storm shield. Is that going to go to a 3 up? Is it going to give a -1 to damage? Will it just give the +1 to armor save in addition to the 4 up? I don't know what's going to happen with storm shields on the assault terminators. I'm curious about that because I've come to be a big fan of assault terminators. They're a unit that I never really thought much about ages ago, and I've in the last 6 months or so really come to like them a lot. Ability core deep strike. Okay, so that's good. I think apparently core now means a core ability. Faction ability is something called Oath of Moment, and we have a clue a little farther down to what that means. So I'm going to cover them, though, in order. The teleport homer is related to the deep strike. So apparently, you can set up a token, and then you can use something called rapid ingress for 0 command points. So that tells us we are going to have command points. You have to set it in within 3 inches horizontally and not within 9 of any enemy models. Now that strikes me as it'd be very easy for an enemy to screen out, but if you get first turn, you could probably deploy them immediately. I think that's probably rapid ingress implies to me that you can set them up turn 1. If the enemy gets first turn and can screen it well, you could, I suppose, set it up in such a way that that would expose them to shooting attacks when your turn comes around, perhaps. I'm not so sure about that. I don't know how much value this is going to be, but it is nice that teleport homer is not something you're going to be paying 5 command points, or excuse me, 5 points for, like you did for it before Arcs of Omen. Then moving on, we got Fury of the First. Now this one gives us a little more clue. So you can ignore all hit modifiers to ballistic or weapon skill with Terminators, just in general. And whenever you're attacking the enemy you selected for Oath of Moment ability this turn, add 1 to the hit rolls. So I guess you're going to put an Oath of Moment on an enemy unit. And I think because Oath of Moment is presently a secondary, this is somehow going to affect scoring. I don't think it's going to be a debuff. That seems strange that you would swear an oath and somehow debuff the enemy. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be scoring, but then you'll also get +1 to hit rolls against that. So you could be hitting on 2 up. They can't modify your ballistic skill or weapon skill or your hit roll either. You'd be 3 up for the chain fist. That could be pretty amazing. These Terminators look really good for me. Now, obviously, we have to see how they're going to compare to the other units in the game within their own side and the enemy side. But this already looks like a data sheet that really does what Terminators are supposed to do. I like it a lot. It does leave some questions open, but it clues us in a lot. My main open questions are, what does Imperium mean? Since it's evidently not a faction. And what does devastating wounds mean on the assault cannon? And what are the war gear and unit size options like, and how are they going to be presented? Are they just not going to be on the datasheet at all for some reason? Or is the datasheet just not showing that portion in what's been released so far? Whether the Terminator squad itself is going to change, I would venture to guess it's not. But if it does change slightly, such as you can take power weapons on characters other than the sergeant, or excuse me, on members of the squad other than the sergeant, that would be cool. But not something I would really be disappointed to not see. That's extremely low on the list of things I'd be asking for. So those would be my main questions. And then also I'd like to know specifically what Oath of Moment does exactly, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to be scoring related. So uh, those are my impressions. I do like it. I think the new data card gets across the point well. And also, if this amount of space is how much space there's going to be for abilities, that's also good because that means we're not going to see data cards that are just a sea of abilities. Like one of my favorite units is uh, uh, Ephrail Stern and kind of all the Bloody Tears. And it's just a sea of abilities, and it relates to some of them relate to Kynagal, some of them relate to Ephrail, some are when Kynagal's on the board, or someone when she's on the board but he's not, it changes. It's really confusing, despite the fact that they're really cool. But it's just so many different rules to consider, and it would be nice to see it pared down to a few easily understandable things per data sheet. That's all I've got for tonight on the Terminator datasheet. Please like and subscribe, comment down below. I'd like to hear what you have to say about either the Terminators or the new datasheet, and click the subscription bell for more great content from Wilderness Wargaming, and we'll see you back here again really soon.